What's up, everyone? I hope you're all having a good day. In the last video, I covered a walkthrough for a skill assessment for the Windows privilege escalation. And in this one, I was kind of looking around for the around the HTTP platform just to see what else I could cover or at least take on as a challenge. And I ended up noticing this track called Active Directory 101. Being from a sysadmin role, I really enjoy Active Directory and I want to be better at it. So I decided to take this on as a challenge. Looks like there's a couple machines. So what we'll do is we'll start off with the easy ones and slowly move on to complete all the insane ones. The first machine I'm going to do is the forest. So let's just get that started up and take a look at it. Now I have the machine spawned and we won't be using the guided mode. Let's just go to the adventure mode. We don't want it to have a step-by-step solution for us. So let's get it started and I'm going to go into my local machine and I'll see you there. Right. So the first thing I did is I pinged the IP address just to confirm that it is online, and I'm actually going to add it to my Etsy host file. So instead of having to refer to it as an IP address, we can just put in forest.htb. As you can see here, I've done it before, so I'm going to update the IP address to the current one, which is 161. And let's just go ping forest.htb, and that works. So let's start enumerating the box. The first thing I done is I ran an nmap scan to see what ports are actually open on the machine. So we're just going to run all nmap scans. bforest.htb. So the scan has completed, and now let's have a look and see what do we have. So we can see here we have a few SMB ports open. We have LDAP, DNS, and we also have WinRM. So that's something to keep in mind, as it's probably going to be the way it's for us to remote in and interact with the machine if we get a user account. So the next thing we do is we'll do a more in-depth scan. So I'm going to do maybe a service detection and some basic scripts. Now in my temp folder, I set up an environment here. I have my power view, and let's go to forest again. So in here, I'm going to make another directory called nmap. Okay, so we'll run the next scan. It's going to be nmap. Actually, we're going to use the operating system detection. So this will require sudo privileges. So sudo nmap. Let's target the SMB ports 139.445. The LDAP ports 389 and 636. And of course, let's just do the WinRM port as well, 5985. The target is forest.htb. And instead of having to run it again, let's just create a text file so we can reference it if needed. So let's just call it nmap.txt. I forgot to run my other scripts. So let's come back here to the command. And so what we're going to do is O for operating system. We're going to do the basic standard scripts and we'll do service detection. The aggressiveness will just set it as T4. So target nmap. So now this should take a couple minutes to complete. Once it does, we'll take a look at the output and take it from there. So it looks like it has completed. So let's just do cat nmap.txt. Let's take a look. So this confirms that the box is called forest. The domain is htb.local. Let me just go into edit mode. Okay, anything else here of interest? If we come back up to the top, so SMB port tells us that this is Windows Server 2016. Nothing running HTTP. Okay, so that looks like about all we gathered from this. So I would take note of all this. I use Obsidian to keep my notes. So I'm just gonna pop it in here. So the next thing is, anytime I am working with an Active Directory machine, if I see the SMB port open, that is going to be my first target. I'm going to try and enumerate if there's any shares I have access to. I want to see if I can get the user account. I want to see if I have any null binds. Now, the thing with this lab is the intention, because it is a retired machine, there is walkthroughs already available. So after I completed this, I looked back on the walkthroughs available and also the one that HTB themselves have published it. So it looks like the intention is for you to interact with LDAP and gather information this way. Now, because my methodology is always SMB first, I actually did not even interact with LDAP at all. So I will do it. I'll show you the way I completed this lab. and I'll show you the way it was intended to complete as well if you want to see. Okay, and also with machines, with machine walkthroughs, the point is to show the way I done it. So I'm not going to show you everything I've tried. I messed around with SMB client, SMB map, and a few other tools like NetExec, and I'll show you the fastest way to complete this, which was I actually ended up running enum for Linux as well, and it seems to have got all the information I was needed to proceed with the box. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm not going to waste your time, show you every attempt, every single path that you can take. Let's just fire up enum for Linux, and we'll do enum for Linux -a for all methods, and we're gonna put our target forest.htb. This should take a few minutes to complete, so we'll just let this run and we'll have a look at the output of the results. Right, so we can see here that has completed. So I'm gonna jump up to the top of the scan and let's just take a look and see what we're able to find. Okay, so if we come back up to the top, we can see here that we're able to get the SID of the domain. I'm not going to save this because later we're going to have a user account and we can get the SID if needed. In here, we're able to see some of the users. And immediately when I ran this, this grabbed my attention. Usually when you see SVC in the name of the account, you kind of can guess it stands for service account. And as you know, if there is a service account, that means there's some sort of third party or a vendor application running in the background. And sometimes the setup to get those working can be a little bit clunky and not security minded first, especially from the vendor side. And I think that is why it's such a hugely targeted accounts always, as you're kind of expected to see something that's configured incorrectly. As we scroll down a little bit lower, we see a few other users that could be of interest. We're attempting to have a look at the shares that are available, and using port 445, we're able to extract the password policy. So we can see here its minimum character is 7. And also we can notice that it doesn't have an account lockout threshold. So this means that you can actually try to brute force some of the accounts, which probably would be a way in. And then as we scroll down lower, we don't see much new, anything else really here. So we still see our user accounts. So the intention behind this lab was for you to find the service account called SVC Alfresco. And what they wanted you to do is to actually look up SVC Alfresco. So let's just take a look at it. If we search for SVC Alfresco, the first thing we notice is some documentation from the provider. And if you scroll down a little bit lower, you'll actually see maybe a Reddit post, and I think there's a few other write-ups of Forest. So if this account caught your attention and you were to Google it, you'd immediately know that this is the path for the box. So let's just jump into the documentation, and I want you to show you what way you were supposed to get this information. If you take a look at the documentation, down here you'll see it show you how to set up a service account for their software on your domain. So one of the interesting factors here is the fact that when you create the service account, you're asked to enable do not require Kerberos pre-authentication. Now, if this is the way that the account is set up in the domain environment, this means that you can actually request a TGT ticket for SVC Alfresco without having to authenticate with the service first. So that means without having the password, you can get the TGT ticket and crack the password using a word list. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's just jump back in here. Now we know that the SVC Alfresco is the target, but let's just say we didn't know and we were just trying to guess. Let's just copy everything in here, all the users, and we'll try use one of the unpacket tools to see if we can find any account that does not require pre-authentication. So I'm using Tmux. What you need to do here is just highlight the text. You select space, and now you can select the text. If we scroll down to the very bottom to here, let's click enter to copy it in our clipboard. I'm going to jump into a different pane and we'll do sudo nano users.txt. To paste it in, Control B, right curly brace. And that's pasted in. Let's save the file. Just to confirm, let's do cat users.txt. Okay, so to pass it into the tool, we actually only need the last part of every username. So everything before backslash should be removed. The way we can do that, clean up the text file, is by using sed command. I actually have it here in my notes as a copy and paste. So I'm just going to pop it in. I'll leave this in the description as well for you guys, so you don't have to type it out yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab everything, including before and including HTTP backslash, and we're going to remove it from the users.txt file, and we're going to put it out to a new text file called cleaned users.txt. So if we run it, that should have completed and created a new text file for us. And if we check the cleaned users.txt, it is exactly the format that we want. Now the next thing is to get the TGT ticket. The way we can do that is by using one of the Unpacket tools called getMPUsers. So getMPUsers.py. We're gonna specify the domain http:// I think it's users file. And we're gonna put in our cleaned users.txt. We're using a null bind, so we'll go with no pass. And then DCIP is going to be forest.htp. Let's just let it run. Might take a few moments here. So as we can see here from the output, most of the accounts doesn't have this feature enabled, which disables the pre-authentication, except for one account, the service account, SVC Alfresco. Also, what I did find strange is the fact that there is actually two of them from this output. Originally, I tried the top one and I wasted quite a bit of time trying to figure it out what it was, but for whatever reason, the top one is not the same if you were to scroll down to the bottom. So this is the one that you want. I couldn't figure it out. Maybe somebody that works with this a little bit more can explain it, but for me, I'm not sure why they're different. Either way, we'll grab the bottom one, and what we'll do is we'll create another text file. Just want to make sure we're in the right one. Okay, so let's do sudo nano svc.txt. Again, you can put anything you want. Just want to confirm that that's worked, and it hasn't. Okay, 2 seconds. Cat svc.txt. Okay, so now that looks to be correct. So the way to crack it is we're going to use hashcat -m for module. I think it's 18200. We're targeting svc.txt, and we're going to use the good old reliable RockU. As you can see here, the password has been cracked with hashcat, and the password for the service with the number 3. So as you remember from the nmap scans, the WinRM port was actually open. So without wasting any time, let's just try WinRM. We'll use evil WinRM. The target IP is forest.htp. User was svc alfresco. And the password service with the number 3. Perfect. What we'll do, I assume this should be in the desktop. And we have our user.txt. Now ignore all the other files. Yours should only contain user.txt. I did reset the machine twice, but I'm not sure. I think it's just reopening the same one for me. So that's why you see Wimpies. As I said, I did try a few things for privilege escalation and few different paths until I found the right one. Obviously, the point of a walkthrough is I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to skip all the failed attempts. I'm just going to show you what got me over the line. So now we have the user flag anyway. And what we'll do next, we'll move on to performing privilege escalation. I will actually, however, take a couple of minutes to go back to the start, and I'm going to show you the way that it was intended for them using LDAP. So as I said, I originally found SMB, and that is always my first target. But the lab wants you to complete this by using LDAP. So I'll just jump back, and for anybody that wants to skip that step, I'll leave a time step to where you can skip so you don't have to sit through the LDAP part if you like. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at the LDAP version, the way it was intended by HTTP. So the tools we're going to use is LDAP search. The first thing you need to do is to actually confirm that a null bind is available using LDAP. The way we can do that is by using LDAP search. I don't fully remember the commands. Let me just zoom in here. I think we're gonna use dash h. I feel like I think it has updated since it used to be lowercase h, and from what I see here now, it's capital H, and we need to pass in the URI. And then we have that B, that's the base DN. We'll have to put that in, and dash X is still here for simple authentication, so that's a null bind. So what we're going to do is LDAP search, capital H, and what we need to do here is pass in as a URI, so it's going to be LDAP forest.htb. I'm not sure if you need a port, but I'm going to put it in anyway. Port 389. We're going to do null session, and we know that the domain is called HTTP. dc.local. Okay, so this actually spits out quite a bit of information, which actually just confirms to us that nullbind is available. We're going to use a different tool to interact with the nullbind, with the LDAP, so we can enumerate a little bit more. We're going to use another tool called WinDAP search. So WinDAP search.py. The DC IP, it's going to be forest.htb. And what we want to dump is, let's just start with computers. And as you can see here, we have two computers on the AD environment, one being forest.htb.local. This is the machine that we are interacting with at the moment. And we also have exchange 01. Let's run WinDAP again, and we can also dump out groups. Again, we see quite a few groups here, and we also can dump out users. Now, when we dump out users, we see a couple interesting users, but we don't actually see the Alfresco account. The intention is for you to run another command to check all objects of the Active Directory. The way we're going to do is you need to pass in a custom query, and I think it's just called object class, and we're going to use the wildcard so it shows us all objects in the domain. Perfect, so that is right. So in this case, we know what we're looking for. I'm not going to go through all the output. I'm just going to use the tmux search option, Control R, and we'll use svc alfresco. So as you can see here, from the output, there's also this account, and we covered the intention of having to go through the documentation to find this option. And that's really all about that was there on the LDAP portion of this. I suppose they both accomplish the same thing. It all looks very similar whether you approach it with SMB or LDAP, but I did want to touch on it that this information can be. I just wanted to touch up that a lot of times, whatever information you're working on the machine can be approached in multiple ways. So I believe if you ever complete a machine, the best thing to do is always to look back and see if you can find it a different way. And what if you didn't have this type of information, but you still have gotten to the point? Just try to analyze it. That will always improve your learning experience. And you'll see that you will be drastically better in a shorter period of time if you have it. Don't just complete something and walk away from it and never look back. So after getting all information, what we're going to do is we're going to jump back to our Evil WinRM session. And in here, we're going to continue on to perform privilege escalation. Right, so for the privilege escalation, if you ever work with a Windows machine, a great tool to start with is always like winpiece.exe or ps1 script. Or if you know you're in Active Directory environment, Bloodhound is probably the go-to. As you can see here, I tried Wimpy to see what I could enumerate with, and I also went the Bloodhound route as well, which after completing my attempt, I looked back at the walkthroughs of HTTP and other users, and seems like everybody went the route of Bloodhound. So that's exactly what we're going to do here as well in the walkthrough. The first thing is installing and using Bloodhound. What we need to do here is we need to get Bloodhound onto our own local machine, and we're going to upload SharpHound. SharpHound is a tool you can either use as a PowerShell script or a .exe. They both do the same thing. They both run power commands to gather information about the environment of the Active Directory. The pros and benefits are very limited. Like the .exe runs a lot faster than PowerShell, but this is the choice that you should make. If you're familiar with the environment, if you know, for example, the environment has alerts or is actually watching for PowerShell scripts, You should probably avoid running any PowerShell scripts, as you know that will be detected. Same thing goes if you know they're looking for execution of .exes in the environment. To try maybe go with the PowerShell route. Or if they're not using either, run the .exe as it's just faster. So the first thing we do is we're going to go to the Bloodhound GitHub, and we're going to clone the Git repo. So in here, we grab the link, jump back into our folders, and I'm going to go back and make another directory called Bloodhound. Let's go in here, and we'll use git clone, paste in the link. Okay, sometimes the connection struggles. So a lot of times what I have to do is I have to change the MTU of the interface of the VPN. So it's done 0, and we'll change MTU to 1200. So we're going to lower it. That seems to fix a lot of issues that I have using my local machine interacting with the HTTP machines. Okay, so we have Bloodhound installed. Let's go to Bloodhound. And in here, we should be able to find #. So we're going to use find current directory. We'll grep for .exes. And as we can see here, we have our #.exe. So we'll do copy. And we're just going to move it back to temp forest. Okay, the next thing we need is to actually upload #out onto our target machine. As we can see here, I've actually already done so, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyways from scratch. I'm going to ignore it. So we're going to go into Evil WinRM. You have a few options actually. You can use either a Python simple server, you can by hosting it, or you can maybe set up a interpreter session if you really want to upload it, or you can just use the built-in function of Evil WinRM, which also allows you to upload and download files from the target machine. So we're going to use the download feature, and we're going to go temp forest #hound.exe, and we're just going to let it download it to our current directory. I constantly get upload and download confused, so in this case, upload is to download it to the target machine. Okay, once we have #hound on our target machine, I'm actually going to remove this so it doesn't interfere with it. Remove item, and we're going to run #hound. So the way to do it is /#hound.exe -c for collection methods, and we're going to do all of them. So this is going to run all the collection methods it has. Again, it's just running Power View scripts to gather usernames, accounts, machines, permissions, ACLs, everything. And we're going to use Bloodhound to graphically map this and view the information we get. So while we wait for that to complete, what we're going to do is we're going to set up Bloodhound on our local machine so we can actually view the data. So the first thing we need to do here for Bloodhound to operate, it requires Neo4j to be installed on a local machine. So let's just jump into Neo4j, install. They should have documentation from the official website. We're going to go Linux, installation. And in here, we see the commands to run to actually get here. So first, we're going to download the files required. So I'm going to actually, I have this installed, but I'll run it with you guys so you can kind of see it firsthand in case you get stuck somewhere. So I'm going to run the first command here. It might take a minute or two for it to download. And I've also missed a big part of the command. So I'm going to cancel that and jump back in. Let me cancel this. And it looks like it requires sudo privileges. So let's just go sudo. Let's overwrite it. Right, so once we have that installed, you're supposed to run sudo apt get update. Run sudo apt get update. This may take a minute or two to complete, and after this is done, we'll use the apt list command to check all the Neo4j versions that are available for you to install. Let me just zoom in so we can actually see better. As you can see here on my side, I already have the 5.25.1 version installed. In your case, if you're just installing it, all of these should be blank and look the same. Now let's just jump back into the documentation, and down lower we can see here how to install it. Let's grab, we're going to want the community edition, so let's just grab the command. And in here we can see here, this is where you specify the version. Unless you have a reason to run a lower version, which for the machines you shouldn't, just install the most new, the latest version. So we're gonna grab the 5.25.1. I'm pretty sure that's what it was in the command. And as you can see here, that has installed correctly. The next thing to do here is just to launch Neo4j console. Neo4j console should get that started. I think mine is already running, and I also forgot sudo. So sudo. So in my case, Neo4j is already running. Obviously for you, it'll say that it's starting up. And what we need to do here is go to localhost port 7474. And in here, the default credentials is Neo4j, and it's exactly the same for the password. Once you select connect, you will be asked to update your password. You can set whatever you like. Even if you forget it, you can always reset it. So now that we have this working, the next thing here to do is to actually download Bloodhound as well. Now we cloned the GitHub of Bloodhound, but we still need to actually download it. So let's just go back into here, and under releases, we'll go in here. And as we can see here, we have the Bloodhound Linux x64. I'm going to copy the link so then I don't have to move it to the directory. I can just go here. Let me go back out. Okay, so in here, we're going to download Bloodhound. Okay, wget. I'm not sure. I think it might be my network actually that's having issues. But anyways, we have it here. Unzip Bloodhound-Linux. Okay, once we have it unzipped, let's go to Bloodhound-Linux. And to launch it, /bloodhound. Okay, it's /bloodhound. Perfect. And in here, you need to sign in with your Neo4j credentials. I think I have mine updated. Okay, after you sign in, you should have a completely blank page. So what we're going to do here is we're going to jump back to our target and see if it has completed for us. And as we can see here, it did complete successfully. So let's just go directory, and you should see a Bloodhound zip file. So what we need to do here, we need to get this file back onto our local machine. So we're going to do download. And where do we want it? I'm going to put it to the temp forest. And I think it's just Bloodhound. Actually, I'm just going to do this. I'm not sure of the... And you also need to specify the name of the file. There you go. Okay. So now when we jump back to the Bloodhound, in the right side through the menu, you'll see upload data. Back in the forest, we see the .zip file. Now, if for you this is stuck on 0%, that usually means the ## you're using is out of date or not compatible with the Bloodhound. So if you didn't follow the steps earlier, I'd recommend to just uninstall the current Bloodhound and install the newest one. Same thing with the #. Get the newest .exe if you're having that issue. So now we should have our domain here. So let's just search for our user, svc alfresco. Right click, and we're going to mark it as user owned. So Bloodhound actually has a few queries that you can run. So under analysis, you'll see those queries. So we can use the find all domain admins. It has some preset. If you scroll over, you can always put in your own custom queries. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the predefined ones already. So we're really going to run the shortest path from owned principals. HTTP.local, the user that we own, SVC alfresco. So looking at this originally, we can see here our user SVC alfresco is part of service accounts, which is also part of privileged ID accounts and account operators, which means that our user will have the rights of account operators. If you work in the sysadmin role, or at least had before, you would know the account operators has permissions to create users and add them to groups that are not privileged groups. So you won't be able to add anybody to administrators, domain admins, backup operators, and a few other groups, but you might be able to add them to some other groups. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use a different query. We're going to use shortest path to domain admins. Okay, so after looking at it for a while, I wasn't sure if it's actually my lab that's broken or something, but I compared my Bloodhound output, especially the graph, and it looks to be different to what a lot of other people got. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you what they see. So this is the path, the one the users here had. As you can see here on Bloodhound, it was able to make the connection that our user SVC alfresco has account operators, generic all ACL over exchange Windows permission group, which also has write DACL permissions over the domain http.local. The write DACL permissions means that you can give yourself or any other user any permissions you want. And the one that we're going to use is DC sync. So again, I'm not 100% sure why on my lab Bloodhound wasn't able to make that connection, but we can see here as well, the Exchange Windows Permissions group here has write DACL rights over http.local domain. If you right click and click on help, we can see here that this group has permissions to modify the DACLs of this domain. And if you click on the Windows Abuse tab, we can see how to perform this. Now, again, from our lab, it doesn't seem to make that connection, but we can also prove it ourselves using PowerView. So again, without even if the Bloodhound doesn't show us the correct information, we're able to, I can show you, I was still able to find this out using PowerView. So as soon as I noticed that SVC Alfresco actually had the rights of account operators, and I noticed that there is a group called Exchange Windows Permissions that has write DACL permissions, using PowerView, I wanted to make sure that I can, as my user, add users to this group, Exchange Windows Permissions. So I'm going to actually upload PowerView and show you what way I got there. I'm pretty sure I already have PowerView in this directory, and I do. So let's go with upload temp forest powerview.ps1, and we're just going to upload it to this directory. We're going to import module powerview.ps1. Let me just zoom in so we can see it a little bit better. So the first thing I did is I got the SID of account operators. So we'll use get domain group identity account operators, select name and object SID. So this is the SID. Now, account operators is a built-in group, so the SID is always going to be the same. As you can tell by the length, that this is a built-in group. So the next thing I wanted to do is prove that this group has generic all privileges over the Windows Exchange Permissions group, I think that's called. So let's do that. We'll go get the main object ACL identity Exchange Windows Permissions. We're going to resolve GUIDs where objects, let's do $_ security identifier. We're going to do like. We'll put the wildcard before the SID. And we'll put a wildcard after the SID just to make sure it actually gets. And we need to close our curly braces. Okay, I see where I went wrong. Just a little typo. Let's run it again. Okay, so this proves to me, as you can see here, secured identifier. This is the account operators. It has generic all permissions over the group called exchange windows permissions. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use this to create an account. And because we have generic call permissions, we can add users into this group. So we'll add our user, our newly created user, into the exchange windows permissions. And then we'll perform the write DACL. So we'll assign our new user DC sync rights. We'll perform DC sync. We'll grab the NTLM hash of the administrator, authenticate using psexec, and grab our last flag. Right. So to create the user, we have a few options here. We can use PowerView, we can use other tools, but I'm just going to use the net command. So we'll just use net user. The username I want doesn't really matter. You can set anything you want. Then the password, we remember the policy only has minimum 7 characters. So I'm just going to set it as password 1. We'll do /add and /domain as it's the domain user. So the next thing we wanted to do is add this user to the Windows. No, sorry, it's called exchange windows permissions. So let me just first confirm that who's on the group. Windows permissions. So as we can see here, it has no members, this group. So we're going to run this command again, and we're going to use add. Actually, I think we need to specify the name first. Add domain. Perfect. Let's run it again. And as we can see here, our newly created user is part of the exchange windows permissions. Let's jump back into Bloodhound. So if you don't see the names of the nodes, you just click the control key and you should see the nodes pop up. So we're looking at the exchange windows permissions group. And in here we have the write DACL. So right click and help. So this is what we want to perform. We want to assign ourselves the permissions to perform DC sync. So as we can see here, we need to set a variable for the password and set the variable for our username and the password. So we'll do this, right? We'll copy it. Jump back into Obsidian, just I'll copy it just in case. Let's quickly grab the command. So first thing, we're going to set the password. We're going to store it as a variable and as a secure string. So the password we set was password 1. Next, we need to set up our user profile, our credential variable. So this is the password. Now, make sure you don't forget to specify the domain. I think it should be enough with just HTTP, but just in case, we'll include http.local. The username, Linux. Right. Let's jump back into Bloodhound to see what's next. And as we can see here, add domain object ACL is the command. This is actually part of PowerView. Now, looking at this, I can already tell the command is either out of date or just incorrect in general. I'm pretty sure we have the target identity, which is the domain, but we also need to add another flag for the target. I think it's principal identity. That's the flag we're looking for, just to specify the user account we're going to use. So let's just jump into our browser. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the command. And if I search for DC sync, I'm looking for Privescalation. So the Privescalation documentation is probably the best. Perfect. So now we have the documentation of Privescalation, and we can have a look and see the syntax for the add domain object ACL command. We see target identity. We already have this. And principal identity. This is what I was looking for. So if we search for this, let me just see what way it is used. Okay, these rights are granted on the target object for the specified principal identity. So when we are applying DC sync rights, we're using the principal identity flag to specify the user we want to apply those permissions to. So we're going to have to, let's just jump back in and grab the full command. Okay, so after target identity, let's specify principal identity. The user will want to apply these rights to is Linux. I'm going to encapsulate it just in case. Okay, and the next thing, from what I remember, the target identity was incorrect. So let's just jump into target identity. Okay, so this is the parameter target identity, and it shows you how to specify. So the way we have it here in the example, it just has testlab.local. So if we were to update it following this, it's going to be htb.local. But as you can see here, what it accepts is actually the SAM, the DN, which is the LDAP specification of it, and the SID. So you need to grab one of the three really, or GUID. So from what I remember, HTTP.local did not work. I could either use the SID or I could specify it as a DN. So it'd be DC equals HTTP, DC equals local. So either or. So I'm going to grab this command. Let's jump back into our terminal and I'm going to paste it in and we'll edit it as we go. So target user, Linux, target identity. Let's put in DC, HTTP, DC equals local. Credential cred, everything looks fine. I'm also going to add the verbose flag, so if something goes wrong, we can at least see where. Okay, so it looks like I have principal identity spelled wrong. Extremely wrong. Let's run it. And this is a confirmation. We can already know that this works. And we see here it says granted principal. And we have given ourselves the DC sync rights. I'm actually curious if we pass in domain SID, if it will work. I didn't do it this way, but I just want to see, just to make sure that it does. So I'm going to run get domain SID. Again, this is a power view function. We'll grab it. So this is the SID of the domain. Let's quickly pop in here and change the target identity. And we'll put the SID. Okay, so it also works with the SID of the domain, as advertised by Powersploit, I suppose. So the next thing to do is to perform a DC sync attack and grab the hash of the administrator account. For the DC sync, there's quite a few ways you can do it. You can use Mimikatz by uploading it to the target machine and running it. I believe Bloodhound will show you how to do this. Yeah, as you can see here, it's showing you how to do LSA dump, DC sync, and the target user. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use another IMPacket tool called secrets dump. Okay, so I have secrets dump.py here. What we're going to do is we're going to use our HTTP account Linux. So this is our account. Specify the password, password1, the target forest.htp. I think that's all we need here. Oh, password1. Okay. Just incorrect credentials. And as we can see here, we're getting the NTLM hashes of every user account on the domain. Let's scroll back up and we'll grab the administrator hash. So we only need the NTLM hash. Let's quickly copy that. The next thing to do is we'll use psexec. You can use the Metasploit module. So if you go MSF console, search for psexec. It's the SMB psexec. I believe it's option 4. Or you can just use the Python script psexec.py. Administrator forest.htb. I think it's just dash hash and paste it in. Okay, hashes. Okay, so let me just go back and update hash to hashes. Perfect. And as we can see here, we have connection. Let's just make sure let's run who am I, and we can see here we are NT authority system. So we have system privileges over this machine. So the next thing to do is to pick the flag, which I assume is going to be in the users administrator. Cd desktop. And perfect, it's root.txt. And I hope you found this walkthrough helpful. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to send them in the comments. Anytime I get any question, I will answer as soon as I can. And if you did enjoy the video, please drop it a like, a comment. I would really appreciate it and it'd make my day. So the part of the video for the machine has been completed, but I also wanted, before I end the video, just have a quick word, especially with the beginners that are watching this video, which I presume would be the majority of people that actually click on my videos. I wanted to talk about the platform of HTB. I think it's a brilliant resource, but I see a lot of beginners really struggle or get demoralized because they go on to, like, for example, this machine is labeled as easy. And I think a lot of people, especially they're new to this, they expect when something's labeled as easy to just power it on and solve it within 10-15 minutes. But that's just not the case. I wouldn't say I am an expert in this in any means. I work as a sys administrator. I worked in IT for about 5 years. And as far as cybersecurity goes, I'm probably about 2 years into my journey. And a machine that's labeled as easy could easily take me a couple of hours. I've completed a hard machine and a medium machine. For example, one hard machine, took me almost a full week to complete. So if you are a beginner, you just need to remember that just to be patient, as it isn't as easy as the title might suggest. The label of easy just means for people that do this at a professional level should find this easy, but it does not mean that they will complete this in 15 to 20 minutes. If you were to go have a look at one of the walkthroughs, for example, IPsec has completed this. I'm just going to jump onto his YouTube channel so you can see. Watch his video, but it is over an hour of length, so it's almost close to 2 hours. I know it's maybe a little bit longer because he may have talked a little bit more in depth about other stuff, and which he has. He done probably a much better job than I did. So I would recommend, even if you did enjoy this video, to have a look at his video too. He offers quite a lot of information that's far more in depth than I can offer. He is much further ahead in his journey than I am, and there's certainly a lot you can learn from him. So if you're looking for some people to follow on the community of pentesting, he is one guy that I highly recommend. After watching his video, my skills have significantly improved. But just to touch back on the beginner stuff, don't get demoralized. Just keep trying and don't have too high expectations for yourself. People that do this at a professional level can take them an hour or two to complete even easy labeled machines. So there's absolutely no shame in taking even longer for you, or even struggling to the point where you need some help to actually complete this. The community of HackTheBox is actually quite nice. If you have any trouble or you get stuck, you can easily get a nudge from one of the users. I've yet to find somebody who took offense to me asking a question. So my recommendation would be to participate in the Discord channel of HTB, and I would strongly recommend to just simply ignore the labeling of the machines, whether it's easy, medium, or hard. Do it at your own pace. Don't put pressure on yourself. If you don't know something, you don't know something. Continue with your academy path, continue learning, and enjoy every moment of it.